Linda, you've got a thing.
I do. And it's grown in the little tapas that I've had here. So I wanted to add in my check-in that I went to Geral's life story. So part of the process of becoming a member here is that you tell your life story in 45 minutes in front of the whole community. And of course, he did an outstanding job. Oh my God. He had a table with pictures of his family, you know, his parents, his kids, his wife. He had an area of architectural beauty things that he did for 25 years. He was an architect, and I didn't really know that. And then he had another area at the table, a very long table. It's a very long table, like 4 tables put together of artwork, you know, that he'd done. And so then then David was there. David, what's his last name? Salih. Yeah, so, and he did some kirtan to start us off, which was of course wonderful. And so I started thinking, my gosh, you know, it's kind of like a celebration of life, you know, when people die, but the person was alive. It was very cool. And I started thinking, we should all do that. Everyone should do this. And then as I was listening to other people, I started thinking, why don't we do it here?
Here meaning where? On Zoom?
On Zoom, on our teacher training alumni thing. I don't know. It's an idea. I don't, you know, I talked to him a little bit about his process, and, you know, it was very, very helpful. I mean, I think it was very stimulating and evocative, and it was a good process for him to go through. And I don't know, just as we were sitting here, I just started thinking, well, why not here?
Well, a footnote to that is that by August, this is still July, by September, a little over a month from now, he will have been here 6 years. It took him 6 years to feel ready to tell his story.
Yeah,
really? 6 years?
Yeah. I was having the same response. Wow.
Time flies.
No, he, I mean, you know, people were pushing him to do it long, long ago. And he said, I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to do that. And so finally he was ready. And when he was ready, he did a bang up job. It was really beautiful and people loved it.
Yeah, so, you know, it isn't something that we have to go, okay, everybody tell your story. You know, maybe I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. It was so beautiful. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, why wait until you're dead to see all these pictures and, you know, hear about somebody's life?
That's why I like funerals, because I usually learn more about the person than I ever knew when they were alive.
Exactly.
Well, and why don't we have funerals before people die?
I think we should.
Yeah, I think that
I've advocated that.
All right.
Like as a rite of passage into cronehood, for example, to say, oh, when you move into your elder, or whatever rite of passage you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just make it up.
It could be a new chapter passage.
Well, does anybody remember reading Kali's Odiya?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you remember, it's very interesting, just a few little passages where he mentioned this, but the community, this 12 families, 12 large extended families, that was a community. One of their traditions was that when people reached the age of I don't know, somewhere in their 70 or something, or early 70s. They went to this special place in the community, but apart, separate, where they began to prepare for going on to the next life. And I mean, they didn't know when that would be, but they started, you know, doing, it was like taking sannyasa in North India. That would be taking sannyasa. But there, that's how they did it, and men and women both did it. And you might recall that they had a big crisis in the community because they suddenly realized, well, someone died without going there, and who was 70 something. And people went, what happened? Oh, we just overlooked that, you know, we should be going there. So all of a sudden there was this exodus of elders out of their households into this place. And people were really having a hard time adjusting because, you know, the elders had their roles and they were now suddenly without that. But they all realized, well, no, that's really important to come to have that time. And so for the first year or two, the family could still visit, but after that, it was like, no, we're finished with all that now. Sorry. And so I don't even know whether they knew when they died. I guess they did. I don't know how they did that. But I was very struck by that practice and thought, wow, that just really makes a lot of sense. Like ashrams for preparing to transition. There are skills you need, you know, and there are things you need to complete, and there's a lot to do to die properly, you know. I mean, you really need to tie up the loose ends and finish things so you don't have to worry about that later. So anyway, that's kind of, you could tell your story there. Or before you go, or I don't know. Anyway,
You know,
if we had such places.
a few years ago, you were talking about how to prepare for transitions, or that you thought that maybe that would be your next big work, maybe as a book or maybe as just your life work. And I'm wondering, you know, what's happening with that?
Well, I haven't forgotten that it's important. And last year, 2019, I did a year-long course on death and dying, which was, we met for 3 hours once a month for a year. So we did 12 3-hour sessions, and we had homework between sessions. And we discussed so many things, and we had films to watch and about various aspects of dying. And it was really amazing. It was led by 2 Buddhists who have spent their lives working in hospice and things like that. And so they were really, and they had done this course many times, and so they were really skilled and had a lot of routines that were helpful. But that was kind of a turning point for me, because I thought, well, I do have this interest as you describe, Arabelle, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with it? And I thought, well, I'll do this course, because then I find out what people are thinking and talking about, and what is the conversation around this subject. And so it was really helpful in that way as well. And it was at the end of that course that I was given a book by one of the members in the community that some of you have heard me talk about, called The Journey of Souls. Has anybody read that?
No, but I did buy it. Does that count?
You did buy it?
I bought it. Yeah, it's on my coffee table with all my other books.
Good. Well, that's the first step.
Yeah.
And that has been really a powerful influence in how I deal with the whole process. I mean, how I think about it. because I feel like it's a major accomplishment in our understanding of death. And I'll just tell you a little bit about it briefly, because I do think it's worth reading if you're at the point where you're curious about those things. And if not, maybe you will want to read it in 10 years, 20 years, or whatever. But it's by a guy who was a psychotherapist, and this was back in the 70s, maybe 80s, when he started his work. And he did psychotherapy. He was also a hypnotherapist. And so he used hypnosis a lot. And he was a very common kind of usual human potential, kind of humanistic, totally agnostic or even atheistic. And and that was true with a lot of people at that time, and probably still is true with a lot of people. But anyway, in the process of doing his work, he would sometimes regress people, and sometimes they went past the point of birth backward, and he thought, well, no, this is weird, this is crazy, this doesn't make any sense. But it happened a number of times, and finally he said, okay, I guess I have to pay attention to this, because it was clear that they were remembering something, and it seemed important to them. So then he got really fascinated with that whole topic. So he became interested not in previous lives, but in the time between lives. And so by this time he had really developed pretty amazing skills in hypnotherapy. And he had learned how to take people into hypnosis and then into their higher self, and let the higher self speak. So he found that when he took people back to the time before birth, then he would have to ask the higher self, because all that other stuff had not filtered down to the level that they could communicate it or even remember it. And so that was what he did routinely. And he did thousands of interviews like this, many thousands, and he recorded them. And so at some point he decided to write a book. And so he used these the transcripts of some of these recordings as the basis of the book. In fact, he just, you read the transcript. I mean, you're reading what people said and what he said. And for our session, he edits them. He doesn't leave all the stuff in there. And so he chose specific sessions with specific people to illustrate different points about what he had found, because what he found was that what people reported was very similar. I mean, it was totally amazingly similar, that they would report this whole process of going, kind of, the tunnel of light. Some people would have that, some people wouldn't, but a lot of people would. And then you encounter your loved ones, and they welcome you and all this stuff. But that wasn't true of everybody. But then after that, kind of homecoming thing, there was a period of rest and kind of meeting with your old friends, the people that you had been in previous lives with who were there. And everybody without exception said, it is so good to get there, because it's like unconditional love. And you just feel totally accepted, totally loved, and totally kind of embraced by the energy there. And so it's just such a relief. So wonderful. And so that's an interesting thing to hear. And so then they talked about different people talked about different, how it went for most people was that there was a time when you went before a group of elders, so to speak, who would kind of inquire about your life, this last life. Like, did you do what you wanted to do? And well, if not, what got in your way? And so how could you design that differently next go around? And that there was no judgment and no blame and none of that. But still there was a kind of accounting. You know, you were sort of accountable for what you did. And so people would feel like, you know, yeah, I couldn't get it together. I went expecting to do da 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 da, and I just wandered off into something else. And, you know, I feel kind of like, wow, what a waste. But it was okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, it wasn't like, oh, you know, that's terrible. I did a horrible thing. But it's just like, I think I missed the mark. And so then you get some counseling and guidance on planning the next life when you decide you want to do another one. And if you say, I'm done for now, then it's okay. You can rest here. But eventually you start feeling like, yeah, I think I want to have another go at it. And then you have to go through that process of thinking about what you want to accomplish and what sort of situation would help you do that. And, you know, getting help to choose a family to land up in and all that. So these are things that people talked about over and over and over and over and over. So I don't know that anyone has ever examined that kind of memory that some people will have about previous lives or whatever in that systematic way to see what is frequent or what is almost universal and what is not. Because then some things were not. And then people who had many lives and made, you know, a lot of gains in awareness and consciousness and, you know, we would say perhaps moving more toward integral thinking. Well, they eventually you don't have to come back if you don't want to, because you are you're working, helping people there and helping souls or spirit, whatever you want to call it, who, when they get there and they need guidance, they need counseling, they need support and so forth. So there's lots of work to do there. So you might be invited to do that instead of coming back to planet Earth or some other planet. And people were pretty clear that, well, you know, planet Earth is not the only planet. And planets do die and you have to go somewhere else. Yeah, it's just an amazing, it was an amazing revelation to me. I didn't know anyone knew all this, you know, or had looked into this so meticulously. And it was Steve Torm. I don't know that any of you know who Steve Torm is, but anyway, he's one of the old, I don't think he's a founder, but he came pretty soon after Earth Haven began. And he teaches lots of spiritual disciplines and so forth in Asheville. He lives half time at Earth Haven. And so he handed it to me one time. He used to run the book concessions at all these conferences that, you know, New Age conferences. So he knew all the books and he got books cheap. And so he was always saying, here, read this. And I usually, and then sometimes I go, oh, I don't know if I want to read that. But I usually say, well, he probably had a reason to give it to me at this time, so I'm going to read it. So that was what was like with this. In fact, he didn't have The Journey of Souls. He had another one that he wrote, a later book. He wrote a number of books, but The Journey of Souls is the one that's the most basic. And then later he wrote books that looked at, you know, kind of specific aspects of this whole process and things that weren't nearly universal and so forth. So there's a lot to learn. And he set up an institute and he trained people to do what he's doing. I don't know how well they do it, but they're all over the country. And he died about 10, 15 years ago, I think.
Rudy, who's
so
the
anyway,
author? What's the name?
The author's name is, and again, we have copies of that book because I made Gerald get his own copy. And
I was just looking for it and some really weird stuff came up. Like
This is what it looks like. Is that backwards on the screen for you?
No.
Michael
No.
Newton.
Michael
it?
Newton,
Michael Newton.
Newton. Michael Newton, PhD. The journey of, it's not the, it's just Journey of Souls. And I also assigned it for people in this teacher's training because it really helps with that always confusing question of, well, what's the spirit and what's the soul, and da 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 da. And in this course, this iteration of the training course, we are doing the mythical structure of consciousness, the gods and goddesses, and well, a lot of stuff about the story, whether it's the story of your story, or this one of the classic stories of your culture or of your religion or whatever. And we're using some really interesting books. And so people are, but that, when Gebser starts the mythical structure of consciousness, is when he starts talking about a soul. And like in the magic structure of consciousness, there was no soul.
Right.
Because there was not enough separation to have a soul. I mean, maybe there was the soul of nature or whatever, but but the soul appears, and that's appears in the mythical structure of consciousness, and that is the cyclical nature of the mythical structure of consciousness is where in the integral, if you want to talk about reincarnation, you have to go to the mythical structure of consciousness, because that's where that is true. It's true that things go in cycles. And in the mental structure of consciousness, it's true that things go in a straight line. And in the magic structure of consciousness, it's true that things don't go anywhere anytime. So the soul is a phenomenon that, I guess you can say, appears with the advent of the mythical structure of consciousness. And so that's when we're going to deal with it. And yet everybody's, well, what do you mean by soul? And it's really tricky. But he describes, or many of his clients will describe being in the place between lives and having, like going to an interview with the elders and standing beside them as their soul. So, they're going through the process, but the soul is kind of helping to guide the process, or wanting you to, I don't know. Anyway, it begins to put that whole soul and spirit kind of question into some perspective. And so that's why I signed it for the group.
Robbie G, it would be very interesting to see the recommended reading list for that group. Would that be possible to, it's probably not all in one place, but would it be possible to share that?
Oh, I'm sure, but it's not set up in advance.
Yeah, okay.
It's like we're just about to do Shane's module about these topics.
Right.
And so by now, most of the books are pretty clear, though recently we added one. And so it takes shape during the preparation for the module. And then it further takes shape during the module itself, because some things people really want to talk more about and others they aren't that interested in. Mm-hmm. So by the end of the course, we'll have that list. You can ask, Lisa Thompson has the list for her module, which is the one we just finished. Well, just finished in, what was it, June, I guess. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. And this wasn't the same list of books for each of the first two courses either. First two
Right.
iterations of teacher's training course. Different people wanted to do different things, and
Are the
yeah, I'm
modules
all
different?
yeah. Each
Are the
module have.
modules different?
Pardon me.
Are the modules different?
The modules are a little different. Not, yeah. Well, okay. So this might interest you, and I already implied it, but we're teaching Gebser in every module, almost. So it's like the
Linda likes that.
yeah, well, like yeah, right. In the magic structure of consciousness, and we're teaching. Okay, so the first module that was an introductory module that Helen and I led, and that was an introduction to Tantra, an introduction to Gebser, and an introduction on how to study for this course and how to read the books and all wonderful stuff. And I'm so apologetic that you didn't have the advantage of that when you were doing your course. But we did that back last year. And then the second module was breath and energy. But breath and energy included a reading and study of the magic structure of consciousness. Yeah. And so it was the breath and chakras and magic structure of consciousness, because, you know, it had become so clear to me that all that happens in the magic structure of consciousness. The breath and energy is part of the magic structure of consciousness. And it's where we're so immersed in nature and so connected with and inseparable from nature. So that was and then the second, well, not second, the third module, which we had in June with Lisa Thompson, was the intermarriage. And it was, we discussed the intermarriage as though, well, it's sort of a link between the magic and the mythical. And so that helped people. So we talked a lot about the deficient magic and how how that led into the beginning of the mythical. So we're situated alchemy and the intermarriage there. And you know, you could make a case for doing it somewhere else, and that's not necessarily the best way, but that made sense to her, and that made sense to the group, and we were in a sequence where we went from, you know, the breath and energy and magic to her, and then next to the mythical and the soul and the the story and the gods and goddesses, archetypes, whatever. So that's how we've done it this time. And then there will be a module on the mental, and that will be a lot more of philosophical writings and so forth. But it's just integrating Gebser more into the curriculum, really. And then there are a lot of other modules that I mean, they will have the advantage at that point of pointing out how what we're studying in their module is connected to which structure of consciousness and so forth. And that is all yet to be developed. So yeah, and so whatever your question was, the module was the same. And so what was, the answer is no, they're not exactly the same, but the answer is they're very similar. But there are some things that are getting short shrift. I mean, there's a module about meltdown. Again, that's still happening. There's a module about health. It's probably going to be different from the ones we've had before. And this time we have a module about Ayurveda, which we never had before.
An entire module?
Pardon me?
An entire module is on Ayurveda?
Yeah. Well, it's on Ayurveda and whatever else fits with that. We
Uh-huh.
don't know yet, depending on the person, you know.
Right.
And that's David Salih.
Oh,
And then while we're in India, we'll be doing the mantra module, which is Ellen. Some of you know Ellen. And she's studying Sanskrit, busily studying Sanskrit. Did she get in touch with you, Stephen?
No.
Oh, well, she wants to. Anyway, she's in
the
Boston.
Boston area, right?
Oh, is she?
Yeah,
What's her
yeah.
name?
Ellen, oh my God, what? McIntyre. Ellen McIntyre. She's from out near the Cape, but not quite onto the Cape. And her family's been there generations and generations. And she's an amazing woman, amazing person. And so she's been doing a lot of work with Sanskrit, but she's also been doing a lot of work with family constellation work since she started the course.
Oh.
So that might end up figuring into her module somehow, I don't know. But anyway, we do that one in India, we do the Ayurvedic one in India, and then we do the meditation and, oh yeah, and this time meditation and community are the same module. So it's really about how meditation can pull the community together and how that overlap between those subjects. And so those three will happen in India. And then when we get back from India, we still have two because we were delayed, and we'll have the yoga, we'll have a yoga module, which we haven't really had before, have we? I don't think so.
Not
No, and so this time yoga module is going to be on what are the many meanings of the word yoga? You know, which is there's so many, you know. I mean, there's the yoga of this and the yoga of that and karma yoga and this yoga and nada yoga and on and on and on and on. So what do we make of all that, and how does it relate to Tantra? And so Stevie is doing that. He's lives in London.
nice.
And he has done extensive years, many years of work with Diane Long.
Yes, we know.
So he will bring that idea of yoga to the group.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so that's a big asset. And then the last module, I think, is going to be the healing power of pleasure, which is John Ellsworth, who many of you know, or some of you know. And he's just perfect for it. He's perfect for it. And so that's how it goes. So we don't really have a module on sexuality per se. But we did the second course, we didn't the first course. So it hasn't been the same every time. And that's partly due to who are the people and what are the topics that they are interested in and so forth. So it's great. I mean, you know, the course is, despite the pandemic, the course is going really well. And what's so amazing is that the group, of necessity really, but even before the pandemic, they were doing it, was having Zoom meetings like once a month or a little more or a little less, all through the time that we're not together. And almost everybody's attended those. And there have been reading assignments and discussions of the reading, and that has made it much more, you come into the module more prepared.
Yeah.
You know? And then to top it off, Helen has started this thing. Helen and Shane started it. And then David Salih got involved, called reading groups. And what they do is they get on the phone together. It's a phone thing. It's not a Zoom thing. And they they will read a passage from Gebser, or they will read a passage from the Mandukya Upanishad, or they will read whatever. And then they discuss it and try to help each other understand it. And there's no preparation for that. So you just get on the phone and start. somebody reads, others listen, comment, and then you have a turn to read. And they've been doing it for like hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I mean, twice a week. It's
Wow.
crazy. And so they're learning a lot, you know, and so then other people got jealous. And on the last Zoom call, they said, you know, this just isn't fair. Why aren't we getting that too? And so everybody said, well, start your reading group, for God's sake. So they started their reading group, the others, and now there are 4 or 5 reading groups, I think 4. And Helen is sitting in with most of them. She's doing a lot of time on the phone, but she's loving it. She's, I'm really understanding all those things that we read a long time ago, and enjoying it so much. So that has bumped it up a notch as well. So we've had, thank God, we've had these amazing upgrades to help with the fact that we haven't been able to get together in person, because people really wanted to get together in person, because the first 2 modules were in person and they loved it, and they loved being at Dancing Shiva, and they really want to do it, but there's always somebody who can't or won't or thinks they shouldn't. And so we've done 1 now online, but we delayed that one for 2 or 3 months before we did it. So that pushed everything forward. And so this is a 4-year course, really more like a 4-year course, but it's good. I mean, they are enthusiastic. They usually, most of them do the readings before the Zoom calls, and the reading groups are great. And so, and they have a good group spirit. And I think that was because we did the first module, first gathering was, you know, building community, had a building community aspect to it. And they responded to that. So one of the members of the group for this before, oops, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I put my hand on the thing and it took me away. But you must be there somewhere if you can hear me.
We can see you and hear you.
Click on the Zoom icon down at the bottom of your computer.
Okay. I did that. That
Did it help?
No.
Oh, it didn't.
Oh, you mean outside the screen? Oh yeah, there we go. I thought there was one on the, anyway, thank you, that helped. And so we had that community building aspect, which was really good. And then I was going to tell you that before the next module, well, then we had the next module, everyone was there. And then before the 3rd module, there was someone who couldn't come. He absolutely could not come. It was something legal and he was not able. And so everybody who, you know, we talked about doing it on Zoom, and maybe he could tune in to some parts of it. And so everybody said, let's wait to do it till when he can. So we did, and then came the pandemic, so we had to wait a little longer. So we ended up doing that 3rd module quite a bit later, but all that time we were meeting on Zoom, and so people were learning. So I'm just astounded and overjoyed because I thought, oh God, this is a pandemic. Oh God, what are we going to do? But I was very clear with the group. I said, there is no way that we're going to stop this course. You know, we are continuing this course. And I was very emphatic. And then afterwards, people said, oh, that was so helpful to hear you say that. And I thought, did you really think we were going to stop? You know, I mean, come on, we're not going to do that.
This all sounds so fabulous.
I know.
Yeah,
I kind of want to take it again.
Well, yeah, why not? It's great. I mean, it's I didn't know that was going to happen, so I'm very grateful. And
would you ever consider, Ravi G, doing a 2nd tier training
Well, I
when
would,
this
but
third class is done, then we have a full, population to choose from.
well, we have a full population that will choose, and I don't get to choose from them and say, hey, you're going to be in the course, because they have to, their lives have to accommodate it, and they have to want to do it, and da 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 da. But after this course is finished, that would be a wonderful thing to do, and
Yeah.
I assume I will still be functional enough to do that. If this course gets extended and delayed again and again, who knows? I may not be on this planet, but yeah, I'd love to be able to do that.
When are you
And
going to India?
We go to India next year in, I think it's the end of October.
Ah,
Yeah, and we're there for a month.
yeah. Because I'm going to Panchakarma, inshallah, in 2021.
Are you?
Yeah,
In the fall?
in the fall.
Yeah.
In the fall.
In the fall.
Anybody want to go
Well,
with me?
well, some of us, I mean, Carol and I have talked about going back for Panchakarma after the course is over. And I would love to do that. Whether we will be able to at that point,
I know.
is a whole different, another question about.
That's why I
what's going
said
on back here.
inshallah. Right.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard that things are not going to really start to get better than until February of 2022.
Because
We have falling apart to do, I guess. I don't know.
We haven't totally fallen apart yet.
That's a good answer.
well, I'm going to say this, and then you can say you heard it. That things are going to be better. Things are going to be better by this fall or winter.
In India or here?
Everywhere.
So what has you saying that, Rudy G?
I don't know, but that's my feeling.
Okay.
He wants to give you a different quote.
Yeah, a different. I mean, come on, we create our own reality, right? So let's create something that we like better. I mean, if everybody.
Could you turn on a light? You look so eerie.
Oh,
It's a little
sorry about that.
disconcerting.
Yeah, I didn't notice, and I forgot that it was getting dark outside.
Oh, yay! There you are.
Not better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I'm not feeling that that it's going to last a long time, and I'm still, very. I'm still very unsure how to think about it, because I am increasingly attuned to what I consider to be a new paradigm for medicine. And I think it's emerging now in rapid increments. By increments, I mean there are people who are clarifying this area and people clarifying that and clarifying that. And it increasingly looks very compatible. All the pieces are compatible, so it can fit together very nicely. And so I do feel that the new medical paradigm is already started happening. And what I have learned about working with new paradigms or different paradigms is that it's so easy because we are so fragmented in the West. Our consciousness is so, put in different categories, everything is divided into little pieces, and we analyze and put this here and that there, and that functions this way. And that. So one part doesn't necessarily integrate with the other part, and that's the real weakness, of course, of our way of life. But because that's so true, and I'm a Westerner, and that's true for me, that I feel that tendency to say, oh yes, that's the new paradigm. But then when I think about a certain illness or a certain issue in medicine, I revert to the old paradigm. So I'm trying to watch myself and say, whoop, I don't think that's new paradigm. I think that's old paradigm. And and so that's quite a discipline. But fortunately, I'm not practicing medicine now, so I don't have to, make so many practical decisions every day that I can go home and say, "Oh God, that was the wrong paradigm." Oh, but that was the best. So I have the luxury of doing it at my own pace. But the new paradigm does not include viral diseases. And in fact, in the new paradigm, I shouldn't say it doesn't include them, but they are not what they used to be. People talk of the virus may unmask something, but it's not causing disease. And this is just an example of the new paradigm. So what we know about viruses, for example, if you want me to, what time is it? Do we have time? Can I go into this?
Who could
Good for
stop
me.
you?
Do we have more than 15 minutes left? I need a little time. So I'm going to talk about it. Yes? Or no?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, you can
Yes.
talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. I just want to be sure. So when we look at viruses, and viruses are right at the heart of this this paradigm shift, really. Viruses are, we're understanding more and more. The understanding was there already. Lynn Margulis, has anyone ever heard of Lynn Margulis? She's a famous virologist. Well, she said a long time ago, she said, we are our viruses. And people going, what are you talking about? But now we're beginning to go, oh, that's what you mean. Because the viruses now are being discovered to be not only just pervasive, ubiquitous even, but they are also numerous. I mean, just trillions of viruses inside of us. And that they are busy all the time in us and in nature and everywhere. Doing a lot of things, many of which we probably don't understand, but we do understand now that they are reshaping and reconfiguring our genetic material so that we can be adapted to the way things are changing, because they're always changing. And that's part of what they do. And it seems it's a major part, but we may discover they're doing a lot of things that are even more major. I don't know. So viruses are, we think, well, oh, I caught a virus. Well, you can't catch them. They move fast. And they are coming in the wind, and they're everywhere and moving around and sweeping around and going in and out of all aspects of nature and doing things. And so by and large, they are really important. I mean, this is really important work they're doing, because it makes us more resilient. However, when we manage to live in a way that's totally unhealthy, but prop our bodies up so they continue to function and we continue to at least look alive, the viruses aren't very sympathetic to that, because they're trying to help us become more resilient. So when they come in and start reshaping our genetic material, then it may be not in terms of keeping this very sick person alive another few years. It might be in the interest of the overall population having more resilience. And so when they do their work in you, it may, if your health is really horrible, it will unmask how horrible it really is. And I wish I could be more explicit about that, but I'm just beginning to understand it a little bit myself. And so I think there is more detail or mechanisms coming down the road that will help us understand it better. But the point is that viruses, like other microbes, are actually what keep us alive. Without them, we would die instantly. And it's not just microbes in your gut. That's just the most obvious example. But they're through all the tissues of the body. And they are doing like 90% of the metabolic work is done by microbes, not by our cells. And the reason that the bit of information that supports that is that we have only 25,000 genes. Well, that's approximately what fruit flies have. But we are more complex creatures than a fruit fly, I hope. I mean, I think we used to be. And so where does the genetic material come to manufacture all the molecular structures that we need to have moving through our body and to carry out the high level process? They are manufactured by microbes. And if you take the microbes away, you take away the capacity to produce those substances. And the more microbes you take away, the more you disrupt that, and the more you are impoverished in terms of your metabolic capacities. We generally have all these redundancies that, well, if it doesn't work that way, we can be done this way. But we start knocking out redundancies when we kill bacteria and microbes and even parasites and fungi. They're all busy. They're all part of the machine, the garden, the internal garden. And so Zach Bush says, every course of antibiotics is one big step toward cancer. Because when you kill off the microbes, they're antibiotics, means they're anti-life. You're killing off your own life. So this is a paradigm shift, you see, because that is not how we thought of microbes. And the other thing that helps me feel we're moving in the right direction is because the way we have been thinking about microbes is fundamentally paranoid. There are creatures out there that you can't see, and they're trying to kill you. And it's like, oh, come on, I'm serious. They're everywhere. Well, that's blatantly paranoid. But we say, well, you got to be realistic. There are germs out there, I mean, they're dangerous. Well, are they? Maybe they're not. Maybe maybe that's what you need. And I think that there's growing evidence that that's what we require, and that the garden needs to be cultivated. You don't just let it grow up in weeds. But the garden is microbial. And so the healthier you are, the more the right kind of bacteria or fungi or parasites. I mean, Susanna told me once, she said, what is all this stuff about Giardia? She said, people come to Mexico to get Giardia because they have certain connective tissue diseases and they get well. Why are you so afraid of Giardia? It has a role to play. And see, this is our idea that, well, there were all this genetic material in the cell, not in the but floating around. So they called it junk DNA. Well, we don't understand what it does, so it's junk. Well, we didn't understand what the appendix did, so it was what do they say? It's vestigial. It probably did something once, but it doesn't do anything anymore. Well, it does do something. Well, just because we don't understand it doesn't mean that it's, it's so arrogant. Sorry, it's very arrogant that, well, all these microbes, we don't need them.
Can you take me back to Giardia for a minute?
Sure.
When anybody says, well, what are you worried about Giardia? It's good for you, connective tissue. If I don't have a connective tissue problem and I get Giardia and I feel sick as a dog forever, whatever period of time there is, why would I be wanting to do that?
Maybe it will keep you from having connective tissue diseases later. I mean, I've seen people, when I came, I got Giardia to Earth Haven. And so Mana's husband, Johnny, he was having it too. And I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, go to the toilet. And I said, well, yeah, but well, I mean, you're going to just keep running to the toilet? He said, yeah, I don't think it's going to last forever. And it went, 4 or 5 or 6 days, and then he was fine. So again,
Well, I guess the problem with it is that we associate it with going to places that are not home, i.e. we're on a limited period of vacation and we don't want to spend half of it sick. I mean, that's the only reason I can think of to be really upset about it.
well, yeah, and I will say that most people would not agree with that. They think there are many reasons to be upset about it and that it's dangerous to get that disease. But anyway, that was Susanna's take, and that people, she didn't understand why it was such a issue, and we think, well, it's where things aren't clean, it's bad hygiene. So people come from Latin America, they get sick, but we don't see that as our bad hygiene. So certainly there's things called something called hygiene. If you have to keep your body clean, just don't let things accumulate and sit there and deteriorate. But you don't want to divest yourself of microbes. And when we use all these antibacterial soaps and things, it's just really destructive. And all these everything in the drugstore, I will tell you that 90% of what is in the drugstore should be outlawed. It's toxic, or it kills off all your microbes. And so we spend a ton of money on all that stuff. When we put it on our skin, it goes through the skin into your body. And we know that those things are toxic, but we say, well, it's topical. It's okay to use it topically. Well, how is that if your skin absorbs stuff?
Well, I've just been doing a thing on Puritanism. And as you're talking, I just wonder if this is also part of the 16th, 17th century Puritan ethic that, cleanliness is next to godliness. And so.
Well, yeah, and I think that there have been echoes of that Puritanism, or new versions of it that people don't connect with the original Puritan stuff. And I think this is certainly one of them, and there are many. But it's cleanliness is good. I mean, you take a shower, but you or you wash, but you wash in the creek where there are microbes that are friendly. Wash with chlorinated water. Well, you're going to kill all the microbes on your skin, and then we got all these skin diseases. I don't know. So anyway, you don't have to take everything I say seriously, because I'm in the middle of a paradigm change. I'm in the middle of a paradigm change, but I'll tell you that 90% of what I hear people say about medicine and healing and so forth, I go, reject, reject. That is not new paradigm.
So the creek, or if you have well water, you're still getting the microbes?
Yeah, you probably are getting some. We don't have really well water. We have spring water. It's called spring water, but we discovered some time ago that they aren't really springs. They're what they call seeps. So the water comes onto the mountain and it seeps through the soil and collects in a certain spot. And that's the water that we drink. That's our drinking water. We catch rainwater, and that's our water for watering plants and cleaning and washing dishes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the paradigm change is happening, and we're in the middle of it. So it's a lot of contradictory stuff that we're going to hear, because some's new paradigm, some's old paradigm, and I think most of us don't even realize we're going through a paradigm change. So this when it comes to the pandemic or when it comes to all kinds of things, you know, it's like, oh my God, no, I don't want to do it that way. I mean, Carol had to say, I know you don't want to go to the hospital. I had to have the CAT scan because I banged my head. I said, you're right, I don't want to go to the hospital, but I'll go and have a CAT scan. I said, but I'm not staying there. And he said, all right, all right. And I didn't have to stay there, thank God. But, you know, they're deeply immersed in the old paradigm, right? And they're doing their best, but their best isn't what I want.
They're immersed in the deficient phase of the old paradigm.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
And God bless them, they don't, nobody tells them that. And so they do the best they can. And they're wonderful people. And, you know, they were very kind to me and polite to me, and I was grateful.
So but I don't understand how you think that, you know, by fall, all this new paradigm is going to be absorbed and we're going to operate from the new paradigm.
Oh, I don't. But I think that we don't have to have everyone understand it to really understand it ourselves and relate to the whole process differently. And some people may do that and others may not. And you might get arrested for not doing that. You know, I don't know. I really don't know how all that's going to work out. That I do not know. But I'm very excited by the fact that there seems to be a new paradigm that's emerging in medicine, because it's been needed so desperately. It's been needed so desperately for so long. And I'm just very grateful.
You know, Robbie G, I heard a Zach Bush interview. He was being interviewed by someone I would put very clearly on the conspiracy theorist camp. And, you know, thus I tend to have my index of suspicion is quite honed around that. And I heard Zach Bush say, the COVID virus is not causing this pandemic. And I thought, oh my God, he's gone on to the deep end. You know, he's just gone over the edge now. And you know, I had that kind of old paradigm reaction to him. And then he said, the virus is unmasking an underlying disorder, but it's
Yes.
not the virus's fault. And when he said that, I thought, I don't know if I can listen to more of this. And then what you just said, it kind of went, oh, that's, so kind of fell into place in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was quoting him a while ago when I said unmasking.
Oh, you
That
were.
was,
Okay.
yeah, that was his term I borrowed.
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to him talk about the role of all kinds of microbes.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for several years now. Right. And so I'm trying to put it together and make sense of it. Mm-hmm. Because I think, you know, this is so compatible with our whole discovery about nature and the environment, and that, you know, we've been trying to kill the things and destroy the things that sustain us. And I think, yeah, and this is just more of the same. It's not just on the macro level, it's on the micro level that we've been trying to destroy the things that that aspect of nature that sustains us. And we can't keep doing that. So this is really, you might say, the efficient magic structure of consciousness coming into play, or coming back into play, that it's all one system interlinked, and it's all doing what it needs to do. And we understand very little and then do things that we think make sense but are destructive. And so I think that it has taken a while for medicine, or medicine isn't, and it's taken a while for us to even understand that on the macro level about the environment. Oh, we're killing off fishes. Oh, well, we don't need fish. We can eat something else, eat chicken. You know, we're killing off all these pieces of the larger what is a system, you know, a biological system, an ecosystem, really, that every part is dependent on the other parts to be there. And so we, you know, people say, well, what's the big deal about the purple warbler or whatever, you know? Well, it's like all these beings, all these plants and animals and stuff, they're all part of a complex ecosystem, and we're part of it too. And if we destroy the system, we will be destroyed. We will destroy ourselves. We're destroying ourselves. And that goes down to the microbial level. And fortunately, when you get to the microbial level, you go a few more steps, and the quantum physicists are already there waiting for you. Because they are already understanding that, you know, the kind of physics that modern medicine, quote, modern medicine, is based on is Newtonian and is, you know, outmoded. And so when we finally put all this together, it's going to be a very clear and a new paradigm that will hopefully rescue us from what we've been doing. So anyway, that's my impression. I feel like the new paradigm is much more compatible with Tantra and much more compatible with everything. And that we've been living in this very bizarre world. I mean, I kind of knew that when I was writing Radical Healing, that the germ theory is a paranoid thinking. I don't know whether I said it in the book, but I remember writing that and thinking, can I say that? Well, I'll say something not quite that strong because I don't want them to lock me up, but it is paranoid thinking. And that, you know, there's a good chance that paranoid thinking, sometimes they're right. Sometimes the paranoid sees things before anyone else, but sometimes it's very delusional. And I think our attitude towards microbes has been extremely delusional. And people make money off of it. You know, all these laundry detergents, well, you know, it destroys all the bacteria in the clothes. And they're like, oh, we don't want any bacteria in our clothes crawling around in there every day. Oh my God, get rid of the bacteria. Well, your skin is covered with bacteria. If it isn't, then you have skin disease. Yeah. I mean, I quit using soap. You don't want to hear this. No, I quit using soap decades ago, except wash under my arms sometimes and my crotch sometimes. But most of the time, I just rinse off with lukewarm water. And that's how people always took baths. They didn't use soap. It's just like the whole thing about police. People didn't have police. That's a relatively new invention. You know, they didn't have police. They didn't have exterminators to kill all the bugs. I mean, we've killed most of the insect population has dropped in the whole world by whatever, 30–40%. Well, that's insane because that's part of the food chain and that's part of the ecosystem. But we're hell bent. We're going to kill all those things that we don't like and that we see they could be dangerous. You know, you just don't know. They can be dangerous. So kill them. Well, that's crazy talk. And that's how we have wars too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the war against cancer. We have the war against poverty. We have all these wars. Well, that's not going to get us anywhere because we keep killing off parts of the ecosystem. So, you know, it's time to get over it, really, I think. That's my opinion. It's like, I've heard it all enough. It doesn't interest me anymore. And I don't believe it.
I would like to ask you a question, or perhaps
Okay.
not a question, actually. So I want to say that for me, the value of these conversations is specifically that it's a sort of concentrated place where it's clear when I'm in new paradigm or old paradigm thinking. And I can see it, but the new paradigm thinking gets reinforced because there's a container for it here. And the larger container that I'm in the world is bombarding against that time. And
Yeah.
so it feels as though I have to hold really tightly to maintain the sane strain of thinking about the world. And so I'm just noticing some in me not feeling embattled right now.
Right. That's wonderful. It's no fun to live in that embattled space, you know. I mean, that's just exhausting. And that's another thing, reason we get sick. It's not the microbes, it's that we're constantly fighting a war, you know. Oh my, yeah. That's that we weren't meant to live that way, I don't think. And you know, then we have the politicians telling us, well, this is perpetual war for peace. You know, I mean, we'll never have peace unless we have war perpetually. That's how you have peace. Well, now that's just about as crazy as you can talk, you know? Can you talk any crazier than that? I don't know how. Oh, but everybody goes, yeah, right. Damn. Well, give a little more money to the military. Hell, they're only getting 60% of the country's revenue. Give them 80%. I mean, we got to protect ourselves from all that stuff out there, all those people out, all those foreigners come in and take us to, and germs, you know, they're all. And I this is my story, because when I was, when I was, I was 3 years old, 44, yeah. And Hitler was still on the radio. You know, you could hear him on the radio. And my parents would be listening. You know, they couldn't understand what he was saying, but they would give you snatches of it. This was 1944. And it was terrifying, you know, the sound of the voice. And, you know, they were terrified. And that's why I would feel terrified, I'm sure. And so the Germans, you know. And so then I would go in the bathroom and my mom would say, well, you got to wash your hands because there are germs in here. And I went, oh my God, they're in here too. And so they were everywhere. And so I was like, okay, you know, they're going to come over here and take us over, these Germans, you know. And I didn't know that it was two different things, but the attitude was the same, you know. They're dangerous, they're foreigners, they could come in, they're going to take us. And so I grew up with that. And so I've had enough of that. I don't want any more. So I have a white flag. You know, peace. We want peace. We don't want to fight. We don't want to kill everything. We don't want to kill all the creatures. You know, so they kill the bears because, you know, they could attack people. Snakes, you got to kill all the snakes because they could attack people. Well, we have snakes here, and one bit someone. Linda was there a day or two ago, and you know, a little kid who was 7 years old, copperhead bit him. And so, you know, I was running around trying to get them to helping get the light and the zapper so you can zap the bite to destroy the venom and da 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 da. But you saw, Linda, you saw the email, right, from Mana? Yeah, that they got there and he was fine, and they decided it was a dry bite. You know, the copperhead did bite him, but didn't inject any venom. Well, he was a little kid. Well, why inject venom in a little kid? That's not going to help me. I don't eat kids. So, you know, we just get all wrapped up in the fear. It's all about fear. And fear is exhausting, and it certainly doesn't help us find the truth. And it certainly doesn't help us down the spiritual path. I mean, Swami Rama used to say, live fearlessly. Yeah, do we have to live fearlessly? So, he would say, is your right hand going to cut your left hand off? That's what he said. In other words, it's all one. Then is one part going to destroy the other part? No, you're just imagining that. You So, okay, that's what I have to say. And everybody can go, he was a little off, he was a little weird tonight. But
We have a recording so that we can listen to it again. I've been finding as soon as David puts it up, I listen to it again.
No.
And I'm finding it helpful. Robbie G, we have had a request. Is it possible that we could shift this meeting to another day of the
Sure.
week? And I'm just asking the people who are here. We originally got on Thursdays because that was good for people on the West Coast, but they haven't been coming to the calls at all.
Well, Liz came. Liz came tonight.
Yeah, Liz came tonight, right,
And,
Right.
and the previous time.
right.
But yeah, for the most part, they haven't. Well, I think it's also time of day for them.
The time of day is awkward for them. But Roger, we were looking at maybe Mondays. Would Mondays work for people?
What time on Mondays?
Depends. Sometimes I have Mondays classes. So what time on Monday? Yeah.
Evening time.
I wouldn't mind going later if it's useful to the those other people, to the West Coast people, and for them, but also because 7 o'clock is right around my dinner time. So if we went a little bit started later, that would not bother me.
Well, I remember a call when we were all talking with people on the West Coast, and they liked 7
Yeah.
o'clock our time, 4 o'clock theirs, because then, by 5 o'clock they have to start cooking for their kids and, all that kind of. So 4 was good for them.
Right.
7 o'clock our time. So
Okay.
if we go later, they were saying, no, not later. That would put us right in the middle of dinner time.
Well, and if we go later, I'm gonna fade before we get to the end of the call.
Yeah. So some Mondays I can do it. I mean, I usually teach from 7:30 to 9:30
Oh, so
when
it's,
I teach.
so it's not great.
Well, I don't know. I have to look at Mondays again.
Would Wednesdays work?
Definitely not. I teach every Wednesday night, so I can't do that.
What about Friday? We could have a date together.
We have our Friday women's group starting soon.
We do?
Okay. Yeah, well, we were aiming for Wednesday. I mean, for Friday. I don't know. Yeah, is that, you think that's pretty
the
common?
group that you're doing. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I have some other Friday obligations, but they're not every week. So, and that probably won't be either. Yeah, I can do Monday or Friday. I do have a standing Monday 8 o'clock meeting, but I could probably move it to 8:30 if we were gonna do 7 to 8:30 on Monday. But I don't think I can move it much later.
Jay, how is all that sounding for what you need?
I'm the one who really have issues with Thursday night because I have a standing commitment every Thursdays, and I've been canceling once a month. And last time is we're going to do it twice a month, and I can't cancel my commitment twice a month. We had changed to Thursday because people on the East Coast, on the West Coast, had said they would prefer Thursdays to Mondays. It would work better.
Could you speak more clearly? I can't hear you very well.
So, just to quickly reiterate, I'm the one who have an issue on Thursday nights because I have a standing commitment on Thursdays. And I've been canceling one night a month. But now that we're talking about twice a month, I can't cancel that meeting twice a month. Now, we had changed to Thursdays because people on the West Coast had said that it would be better for them to do it on Thursdays instead of Mondays. So it was a request that we changed to Thursdays. And those who did make their request haven't showed up yet.
Yeah, when I look at my schedule now, I've kept Thursdays open and I put stuff on Mondays. I have a lot of Mondays scheduled. 7:30-ish, 7:30. Yeah, I have several things now every often,
All
like
right.
at least.
So Friday works for me.
But I just heard that we're going to have a women's group on Friday.
Oh, I see. It's
But
a
that
week
won't be
Friday?
that won't be every week.
Be every other week.
Yeah.
How about 6 o'clock on a Monday? We'll be done by your class. Is that packing a Monday for you, Linda?
I could do that. But that's really early that's 3 o'clock for them.
But they're not.
Yeah. Everything starts for me at 7:30 if I teach. So that's what's happening.
Hmm.
I like the idea of meeting at 6.
Yeah, I do too, but that's 3 o'clock for them. So I don't know.
But they don't come.
Yeah.
Why do you keep saying that?
And Liz isn't seeing clients right now. So, so I can't imagine that an hour earlier would be an impediment for her.
Well, we can ask, would you rather not come at 4 o'clock or not come at 6 o'clock?
I'll send that email out, Robbie G. I'm sure it will be well received.
Mm. Oh man.
So what's the pleasure of this group?
What are our well, nobody's talked about Tuesday.
I teach on Tuesday. I teach Tuesday, Wednesday, and I used to teach Thursday, but I've stopped. I've said, I can't teach Thursday because I have a commitment to this group. So
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are out. Is that right?
I can do Thursday. Thursdays I've kept open.
Right, but
I can do
they're not for
Monday.
Jose, I'm not just speaking about you.
Okay, I thought you were talking to me.
I was, but in general, those days are out for one person or another.
Well, what I've heard is Friday. If we did it opposite the women's gathering,
That would work.
would that work for anyone else?
Yes.
Stephen, Roger?
Yeah, I can do Friday. Evenings are fine. I have a lot of morning stuff, but evenings are fine.
Roger?
I think so, yes.
Robbie G?
Well, yeah, I can do maybe it's once a month. I have a Friday that I can't do. And I don't know how long that's going to last anyway, but
Okay.
we could try Friday, yeah.
You want to look at Friday the 14th?
So my question at this point is, are we still talking about once a month or twice a month here?
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't
What's the
know.
pleasure of the body?
Well, what about every 3 weeks?
My system cannot accommodate that.
Well, that'll make it harder.
One date now and decide then if we need to meet again in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4. How
Are
would
we avoiding weekends for a reason?
Sunday, we have regular stuff already,
That's right. Yeah.
so it'll just be Saturday.
What about Saturday morning-ish, not early?
I have clients usually on Saturdays.
Okay.
so can we look at Friday the 14th
Of August, yeah.
of August?
At what time?
7.
I already have it in there for the women's group, but we haven't really decided that for sure yet. So, okay.
Okay.
Robbie G, does that work for you, or do you want to go to the week before?
That's okay. Let's do that.
Okay.
But also, let's find out if it really makes a difference. I mean, I've spent a lot of time getting my Thursdays open. So,
But Jose's the one that says he can't do Thursdays.
oh, that's right. Okay.
Listen, if it's once a month, I've committed to canceling once a month, and I'll continue doing that if that is the case. But I won't do it twice a month.
Okay, well, let's try Fridays then.
So Friday the 14th at 7 p.m. I'll send an email out.
Okay.
And
Okay.
thank you, Arabella, for doing this stuff. It really helps.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Ready to say goodnight?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
What-
such a
what
pleasure.
about-
Thank you.
Let's do, I don't know, even a one-word takeaway or something so that we can close the energy from just falling around here. I'll
Good.
start. Container. I liked, Deborah, what you said about container for the new paradigm, that kind of, you know, the morphic field. We're having our morphic field here.
Well, excitement.
New paradigm.
I was going to say paradigm shift.
I'm going to say intrigued.
Hmm.
I'm tingling.
Thanks. I
Great.
love that. I love hearing that because sometimes I don't know where people are, so it really helps. Thank you.
All right, everybody.
So,
Bye.
good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Thank you so much, Robbie G.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. You all
Right.
take care. Love you all.